Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Tobi Alade, a man of many hats and even more stories, thankfully. He's a business analyst, fraud risk strategist, event matchmaker, and the voice behind the IINFUSE podcast, a space where self-awareness takes center stage and the conversations go where most people shy away from. On IINFUSE, there's no jargon, no corporate polish, just real talk, unfiltered and raw. Tobi has a way of inviting his guests into honest, vulnerable spaces where the stories rarely said out loud finally get a voice. In our conversation today, he shares the storytelling approach that fuels his unique platform, why authenticity matters now more than ever, and even teases some of the powerful insights he's gathered from his guests along the way. If you've ever wondered how stories told with courage and without a script can connect us more deeply to ourselves and each other, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Hi, Tobi.
Hi, Sochi. How are you? Thank you for that amazing introduction. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. I'm happy to have you too. Thanks for doing this. We were connected by especially your platform, and we seem to have some similarities according to our matchmaker, who shall not be named.
Yes.
I think one of the things that drew me to your platform and to your profile and to you is your honesty. I'd say your storytelling approach in a manner of speaking, and I like how, for me, one of the things that stand out or that I have a sense of in your approach and in your personality is the integrity. So it means a lot for me to have you on this podcast as well, talk about all things storytelling and Tobi.
No, I appreciate that. And one thing I would also say is that's the vibe I got from you as well. I knew that we had, that similarity in our approach to, delivering whatever message we deliver. And of course, the integrity and the realness as well. That's why, this conversation to me was a no-brainer.
Yeah. Awesome. So, the IINFUSE podcast, how did you come about it? What's the origin story?
Good question. So for me, it started as a way for me to process my own thoughts, right? So I was going through this season. I'll give you a bit of a background story for
Feel free.
Yeah. So I was going through this season, where I had a lot in my head, but then I didn't particularly have a real outlet, right? I had tried certain things or certain outlets, but nothing was hitting. I didn't find that. I didn't find what worked for me, right? So with IINFUSE became has become almost like my personal therapy, right? So I would write, I would record, just put my own perspective out there, right? And it all started off, as I said, as personal therapy. But then what happened was people started reaching out. People started saying, hey, I feel the same way, but I've never said it out loud, So for me, that's when I realized, this feeling wasn't just me, right? When I realized we're all very similar. We're all thinking, these deep things, but how do I put it? Life moves so fast. We don't even always calm down to reflect and to pause, to unpack them, right? So where I'm going with this, or what I'm just really trying to say is that pause, that's really what IINFUSE is about.
That's powerful. I mean, and it's also affirming too, because I often tell people, if you have a story, you should tell it, and not just to hear the sound of your own voice, but someone else out there will feel validated by your perspective, and also feel represented. I mean, they see themselves in your stories or in your persona as you tell the story, and like you said, some people reaching out to you to say, I've never really heard anyone say this back to me. It's always been in my head. But the power behind those thoughts is really that the person feels uplifted, and kudos to you. That's the feeling that you're that's a service that I like to see it as a service that you're actually doing a lot of people.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And as you said, it's funny how we all have different issues, but we're so similar. And so it's just a mirror, if anything, things that we think, but maybe we just don't articulate. So that's what this is about.
Another interesting thing is how, especially since you already have these other roles front and center, you're wearing many hats, multiple hats, business analyst, fraud risk strategist. I don't even know what that is. It sounds very technical. But you also have you're also playing the role of an event matchmaker. I see your newsletters on LinkedIn, and then you have this as your role as a podcast host. So how do these, because I consider these different stories, they're coming up or popping up somewhere sometime along your journey. I mean, how do they intersect with your approach? How are you even doing this? How are you juggling all of these roles?
So I mean, one thing that this has taught me is, time management. So I mean, you have to manage your time. What I will say though is every single one of these roles, they have one thing in common, right? And that thing is storytelling, right? And for me, whether it's a fraud analyst, whether it's an event host, whether it's a business analyst, for example, whatever the case is, right? Storytelling is one way to make people feel something, right? Because with people, you can make someone, stories enable you to make people feel something and actually remember it. There's one thing hearing something, there's another thing actually feeling it and remember it, right? And I think for me, honestly, I've always just told stories my whole life. So even as a kid, I'll notice little things about people, and kind of connect those dots, in my head, right? And I didn't realize at the time, but that was my way of making sense of the world, right?
Yeah.
So even in my career as a BA, it's the same thing, just in a different setting, right? Because you're taking, messy details from different people and you're turning it into something, something clear that actually makes sense, right? Which is basically storytelling. So I guess to answer your question, really, it's time management, but the element of storytelling is what brings everything together and just makes it make sense in my head. That's my approach anyway.
I feel like you've answered like 3 questions already. Because you touched on so many salient points there. I feel listening to you is just you paint a very clear picture of a superhero with a gift of being able to connect the dots. You watched Sherlock Holmes?
I did.
The
Yes.
BBC production, right?
Yep, I did.
When Sherlock is in that moment when he's distilling or filtering, trying to deduce, and you see all those
thoughts in his head.
Everything is connecting, the symbols, the micro expressions, the details, everything is coming together, and then he comes to this to this moment of clarity where everything is so clear. He can now draw that line between point A and point B.
Yes.
But it's not given to everyone. It's not as obvious. It's not as obvious as people sometimes, and that is why. And I can completely understand how you can excel at all these roles, because they have that as you said, common thread of being able to distill so much messiness also for you to have that moment of clarity, and you can communicate ideas descriptively for people to be able to understand and also feel. But thanks for that. You have self-awareness as the central theme in your podcast. I mean, how has your listening to your guest stories deepened your own self-awareness?
That's a good question. So one thing that I would say listening or speaking to people has given me, or I have, is perspective, right? I feel like in life, no one is an island. You don't know everything. So the importance of perspective is underrated, because you have the way you see things. X has the way they see things. And what I have gathered with this podcast is I am learning different people's angles to things, and it's giving me a richer view on how to view things, how to tackle situations, how to react to things, and I'll go a bit further with something. So with self-awareness, I think self-awareness, first of all, is the starting point for everything, right? It's basically what triggers you, what drives you, what drains you even, right? So, and I've also started to realize that self-awareness doesn't mean that you have everything figured out, right? If anything, it just means that you're paying attention, right, to things, which is my approach and which is what I have gained from people, right? So, as I said, I don't have anything figured out. As a matter of fact, I don't know a lot of things. But what I've realized is the more I speak to people, the more I hear them, the more I listen to them, the more I, pick out what is useful or what I can add to my life to make me a better, well-rounded individual, if anything. So, as I said, to answer your question, it's just different perspectives and making sense of everything.
I can just imagine how many kinds of, from the weird to the strange or even surprising perspectives that you've come into or even heard. But what in your experience, what makes people open up and share their truth, especially when it's something that they've rarely spoken about before?
People just like to be heard, honestly. I think just with this whole thing called conversation, I feel like I had to relearn everything. You don't always have to speak, sometimes people just want a listening ear, right? And once you can provide an ear to people and just listen to what they have to say, people tend to open up a little bit better, right? There's even this thing in psychology, where self-aware people apparently tend to handle stress better and even make better decisions, right? And from my own experience, I've seen that play out in my own life. So people just like to be heard. As I said, don't interrupt when people are speaking. You don't even always have to give your own 2 cents, to be honest. Just hear them out and let people feel comfortable enough speaking to you. And it's amazing how people just open up and are just more comfortable with you.
That's really powerful. How often do you have to? When do you think it's necessary for you to chip in or throw in your 2 cents?
Sometimes it depends on the tone of the voice. As you're having a conversation with someone, you can tell, at least I have gotten to learn, when someone is 100% positive or confident on something they're saying, or when they're not seeking validation per se, but maybe they're not, they require some sort of input. It could just be how you stress a word. It could be eye contact. It could be expressions, whatever the case might be, right? So it's just learning cues, learning tones, and but that's where the whole active listening comes in as well, right? Because if you actively listen, you can pick out certain cues and certain points, in the conversation where this individual is open to some sort of insight from you. So that's how I approach it on my end.
That's great. What's one guest story or insights from IINFUSE that has stayed with you long after the conversation ended?
That's a good one. I have to think. So, I had this conversation with an individual. So I actually didn't record this episode. This was actually off camera. But we had this conversation. So I had an episode called "It's Okay to Be Misunderstood," and there was something this person. So a lot of people from what I've in life are always trying to be. There's this, I don't know if it's a misconception, but then there's this idea that you have to be, or it's really always nice for people to understand you, every single thing that you say. But this person said something and said, I'm not saying don't be clear, but what I'm saying is some things you say at this particular point in time might not just be ready to be understood at that point in time. So you could say what you need to say, and maybe down the line, the person you said it to might then interpret your message differently and understand it differently. It doesn't mean you're not being clear. It just means it hasn't particularly hit at that point in time. And I think for me, what that did for me was it took away that pressure of always getting, validation from a conversation right away.
Instant validation.
That instant validation. So that was something that stuck with me, and I apply it to my life every day.
I think that's really resonates with me, because I think often we, like you said, that need and that pressure to be sure that we're clearly understood that instant. I think it's very dangerous in a way that it can actually thwart or hinder the objective or the benefits of what you actually had to say. And I see your point also, because it's rather humbling and also speaks to the burden that most or all storytellers bear. I remember there was a book I read, and the query that one storyteller had was when the person he was speaking with kept asking him, why do you speak in prophecies?
Okay.
Why do you speak in prophecies? And after reading it, it kept ringing in my head. Why do you speak in prophecies? I think that was a very interesting thing to say. Instead of saying, why do you speak in maybe riddles, or you say in prophecies. Prophecies meaning things that haven't even come to be, obviously, because I cannot relate with it right now. I can't pinpoint an instance of this thing you said in the past, but it's very likely to be something that will happen in future. And I remember the response of that storyteller was no. He didn't feel the need or pressure to explain it or even assure you that it will be, but it is the message that he needs or he had to deliver at that instant, and he leaves it to work its magic, to run its course. And again, for me, it's one of those testaments of how humbling it can be and how humble storytellers need to be when delivering their own messages, to your job is not to shove down the medicine down people's throats. You give it to them in their hands.
Exactly.
And down the road, it will run its course, it will do its work, and you may not even be remembered, but it will have had its effect in its time. So it's really, affirming and, very, very true what you said about, not feeling that pressure to actually make sure that people clearly understand, even if you're saying it clearly and maybe in clear English or whatever language you're delivering your messages in, but it's not for you to get an instant gratification after delivering just delivering your message. Let me put it that way.
Exactly.
Message and leave it to do its work.
Exactly. It's like painting a picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes people might not get it initially, but when it's in the museum, that's when they say it's abstract. People now start decoding whatever they want to decode from it, But maybe you had that idea in mind, but you leave it for the people, or you leave it to, it's timeless.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I feel that, I think this is what gives your podcast that unique quality of, being refreshingly unfiltered. But how do you strike the balance between being candid and being respectful of sensitive topics? Because your topics can range sometimes from, self-awareness really touches in different areas of life, different walks of life. And especially maybe from career to mental issues or mental health. So how do you strike that balance?
It's a very, very good question. As you mentioned, I try to be as raw and unfiltered and, engaging as well as possible and just real as possible. I think how I'll answer this question, before any episode that, I have a question that I ask myself. And the first question I ask myself is, or the main question I would say is, how do you want people to feel after engaging with your content? Right? That's the $1 million question every time, right? I know some topics might be a bit sensitive, might be a bit touchy, but to answer that, I just want people to feel like you're not crazy, right? Like you're not the only one, who is thinking or feeling a certain way, because regardless of how social media, is one thing, it makes people, it could drive you crazy. People are posting, their best life and all of that, right? But the truth of the matter is, we're all out here just trying to make sense of life, right? And from what I understand, from what I know, it's much easier when you know you're not alone, right? So I guess where I'm going with this is, if someone walks away from my content feeling, a bit lighter, feeling a bit more understood, or even feeling a little bit more hopeful, whatever the case might be, then in my head, in my mind, I've done my job, right? So, as I said, of course, some topics are a bit touchy, for sure, but the bottom line is you can't really always shy away from the tough conversations, right? Long and short of it is, the whole concept of this is just to make you feel understood, to make you feel hopeful, and just to make you feel lighter as well. That's the whole thought process with my episodes.
Who would you say is your model for either a great podcast host or great storyteller? I mean, you probably have someone in mind, or someone on your feed, or something that you always like. When you see something from that person, you always want tune in again.
I actually have. I have a. Funny enough, you even believe.
Don't stop at one. You can do 2, 3, or 4.
A few. I have this lady on Instagram. Yeah. She's called Quillen Walther. I don't know if you've heard about her before.
I'll check her out.
Walther. I'll send it to you.
All right.
She talks about like self-development and all of that, and she asks the tough questions, but it's just her vibe. It's just the way she presents it to you. It always makes you think, this lady is talking sense. And then in terms of just the natural raw vibe, I actually like Joe Rogan, which is a bit south from what I do, but I just like his rawness. He's not coming into any episode.
His candor. Yeah.
He's not coming into episode feeling like he has all the answers or feeling like he knows anything even. He's just coming, his raw form, giving you his thoughts, giving you his opinions, and willing to hear your feedback as well. So those are the two people that I would say I like. I adopted my style from.
Yeah, I can see how those styles kind of come together in the mix on your shows, or even with your approach, seeing as one is almost pristine in its how it's very precise in dissecting those issues, and then the other being very unfiltered, as Joe Rogan does. It takes me to another question, which is, as a storyteller, you probably have some kind of like, how do you say it, like a content creation goal or something like that. Not necessarily like numbers per se, but in terms of what aspirations do you have? Where do you see your platform getting to in terms of the impact that it plans to make, the scale of the impact it plans to make?
Good question. So I mean, I tried to take things very in increments, right? So I think what I would like to do, I would like to go, a bit deeper with it. So maybe have, live conversations, bring in more guests, and just build more of a community, right? My goal with it is I don't want Infuse to just be, a post you read or, maybe just a podcast you listen to.
Yeah.
I want it to be something people feel part of, right? But as I mentioned, I'm taking it one step at a time, because big dreams can be overwhelming sometimes. So so I'm just trying to break it down into small doable steps. That's just really, really what it is. And there's something my mom always says, funny. She says, how does she put it? She says it in Yoruba.
Say it in Yoruba then. Say it in Yoruba, we'll translate.
I don't want to massacre it.
Oh boy, is that you? Is that you? You're the one who your mother tells you're not saying it right.
Yeah, it's me. That's
okay. But, try.
How do I put it? No, let me do English.
It's okay. It sounds like you're going to hurt yourself.
Huh?
You sound like you're about to hurt yourself. So say it in English.
Let me stick to English.
Yes.
So the translation is, don't let the size of your dreams scare you. Focus on the next step in front of you, right? And I like that because it just enables me, because sometimes if you're thinking too far, you miss what is ahead of you. So it's almost like the journey is the destination, so enjoy the journey kind of thing. So I try to be very present, try to be in the moment, right? So regarding your question about Infuse, I have ideas, I have, where I want it to be, but, as I said, maybe more live conversations. I'm going to start with bringing on more guests as well. And just people just need to be part of something, feel part of something, pretty much.
Are there any themes, are you looking to expand the theme of the themes of, your podcast is presently covering beyond what it is right now?
Um, I have thought of that. So maybe not expand the theme per se, but um, maybe make it a bit more, because it's about self-awareness. But I'm also trying to integrate or add some more relevant, social, everyday topics into the podcast. So I'll give an example. There was an episode I did. I did it with this U of T professor, and the topic was called "Scared but Still Showing Up." Right. The whole concept of that is, you're scared, but then you gather the courage to keep showing up. Right. It might sound, very vague, but what I now do, or what I did on that podcast, or what I'm going to start doing forward, is I tied in actual real life solutions for people. So, an example: you're an entrepreneur who is trying to, maybe you're starting off, maybe you don't know how to write a proposal, for example, right? You're scared of that whole entrepreneurial space. You have that imposter syndrome. What I put forward in that episode was, well, there are institutions, there are organizations that can actually help you with writing a proposal. There are organizations that could actually connect you with the people that you need to give you the necessary visibility that you need. So things like that are things that I'm going to incorporate into my topics, right? But bottom line, it's still down to self-awareness. That's the core of the podcast.
And that's that. I would say that's really a brave thing to do. I mean, to stick to your North Star and basically range it till it gives its fullest value, and that's very hard to do. A lot of people want to maybe just stack up different things and seize, or just throwing different things at the ceiling and see what sticks. But seeing as that is your approach, it's not going to be surprising how strongly you're going to build that brand, and the value that or the impact that it will also potentially provide as well. Tobi, we come to the section where we run through some rapid fire warm down questions.
Okay,
you ready?
I'm intrigued.
Okay, don't worry. It's I'm not going to throw you a curveball, so it's very easy. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. If your life right now were a podcast episode title, what would it be?
Scared but still showing up.
Yeah, lovely. How did I see that coming? Okay. Why would that be?
Because I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
And it's still unfamiliar territory, but it's getting easier. So
you have to hear that. Okay, number 2. Coffee, tea, or something completely unexpected?
Coffee.
Okay. Coffee. I just got off that train myself, but
I'm work in progress.
The last song you had on repeat?
Oof. It's a Hans Zimmer song. I don't know if you know Hans Zimmer.
Yes. Composer. Movie. Yeah.
Yes, it's the Hans Zimmer Gladiator.
Okay.
I was listening to that at the gym today, so I have it.
Okay. Nice. Dream guest you'd love to interview, living or dead?
Oof. Dream guest I'd love to interview, living or dead. That's a good one. That is a good one, actually. I need to think. Living or dead? Oof. Quick fire question, Abby. I would like to interview Sir Alex Ferguson. don't know if you know.
Oh, okay. I
don't know if you know.
No, that's Arsenal, right?
Man United.
Man United, yeah.
Coach. Yes, that's who I would like to speak to.
I know he was a person of interest in. So I read Ike Imokwede's book.
Okay.
Ike Imokwede is the founder of founder of Access Bank in Nigeria, and he wrote a book in 2020. I think it was released 2021.
Okay.
And in his book, he talked about how Sir Alex was an inspiration for how he modeled corporate culture for Access Bank, and he did a good job of breaking down certain values that he found in close tangents with what he especially envisioned for the bank, as learned or inspired by Sir Ferguson. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I haven't heard anyone actually prop him prop him as a model. Like another person prop him as a model until now. So that was just good throwback. Thanks for that. One word you hope people would use to describe you?
Infuse.
Ooh, okay. What about the brand? Why infuse? So it's as a verb or as a noun?
As
adjective, or because that's what's confusing for me. It's not an adjective, but it's more like is it like a verb or a noun? Which one?
More of a verb.
Interesting.
What you know the whole concept of infuse, right? To infuse, slow but steady, but also very effective.
Okay,
that's
nice. Oh wow, that sounded very scientific. Okay. I would never have thought. Okay, that's quite refreshing. Tobi, this has been really great conversation with you. I'm really glad that we had it. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
It's a pleasure, Sochi, every time.
And I hope to have you again on the show, talk and maybe even go off topic more than staying on topic in another version of this conversation.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, Sochi, take care.